چۆن توانیتان ئەو تاوانانەی کە لە ڕواندا ڕوویاندا بە جینۆساید بناسێنن؟
Well, I think what is important is that in the case of Rwanda, where you know, of course, a very important, very large-scale genocide happened, there was a process, an accountability process, because I think without accountability process, there can be without truth, there can be no justice, of course. And so in the case of Rwanda, complex interaction was set up between the Special International Court for Rwanda, which was set up by the United Nations in Arusha, the national Rwandan courts, also European courts, in which I more particularly intervened, who tried people who fled, perpetrators of the genocide who fled to Europe and were trying to hide in Europe. So European courts, European investigators, European prosecutors played an important role in gathering evidence, bringing people to trial who were hiding in Europe, and by doing so, of course, also in the process of recognition of the fact that the genocide had happened. Then the Rwandan courts, the local courts, of course, played an important role, especially the special Gacaca courts which were set up, which actually were somewhere between a court and a truth commission, and which dealt with local cases, with minor local responsibilities, but which had a very important role in bringing justice and bringing the truth to the people on the local level. And they dealt in the Rwandan case with more than 110,000 cases.
کەواتە خەڵکەکە یارمەتیدەر بوو بۆ کۆکردنەوەی بەڵگە و دانی زانیاری لەسەر چۆنیەتی ڕوودانی ئەو تاوانانە؟
Yes, of course, and it was a complex process. The investigators of the International Court conducted investigations on the ground. European investigators also conducted investigations in order to conduct the trials in Europe. And of course, the Rwandese local investigators, police, prosecution, also played a role. And it's precisely because all this information was finally combined and all this information was cross-checked and reinforced one the other, that I think that the accountability process in Rwanda was conducted to a good end. And I think that is probably what is needed also in relation to the crimes conducted by ISIS. All available capacity, international, national, has to be mobilized, all capacity to conduct investigations and to prosecute and to bring to justice has to be mobilized, and the cooperation of these different mechanisms has to be organized. So I think it really needs a plan and a task force to set up that approach in order to get justice.
باشە دکتۆر با لەوە بپرسم چی کراوە لەسەر ئاستی نێودەوڵەتی بۆ بە جینۆساید ناساندنی تاوانەکانی داعش دژ بە کوردانی یزدی چ جیاوازیەکی هەیە بەلای جەنابتەوە لە نێوان ئەوەی کە لە ڕواندا ڕوویدا و ئەوەی کە لە شەنگال ڕوویدا؟
Well, first of all, as far as the nature of the crimes is concerned, every situation, of course, has its particular circumstances. But it seems very clear to me and undoubtable that it cannot be discussed that ISIS indeed committed genocidal crimes against the Yezidis, but also against other communities. I think Christians have been submitted to acts of genocidal acts. Shabak, Kakai, other groups have also been submitted to acts of genocide. And I think it's in line with the genocidal ideology, political ideology that ISIS was that ISIS has. So that is one point. The second point is that I think it is very necessary now to also set up, in relation to the situation in Iraq and the crimes committed by ISIS, mechanisms that are tailored to the situation, because you can't just transplant mechanisms from one situation to another. You need mechanisms that are tailored to the situation, but that allow an effective collection of evidence regarding these crimes and an effective process of accountability. personally, I think some of the matters could be dealt with in the International Criminal Court because although nor Iraq nor Syria signed the Rome Statute, many citizens from countries that did sign the Rome Statute participated in the crimes. But we all know that the process in the ICC, in the International Criminal Court, is a very heavy process, and that anyhow the International Criminal Court will only look into a few cases and not in the whole range of crimes.
بۆچی ینی تا ئێستا هەنگاوێک نەنێنراوە لەسەر ئاستی نێودەوڵەتی لە کاتێکدا نەتەوە یەکگرتووەکان چەند بڕیارێکی دەرکردووە بەڵام هەروە ماونەتەوە بێ هەنگاونان بێ ئەوەی ببن بە کردار بۆ بە جینۆساید ناساندنیام کەیسە.
Well, I think it always, first of all, I understand the necessity for the Yazidi people to have these facts recognized as a genocide. But on the other hand, it is my feeling that actually the political recognition that the Yazidi people were submitted to a genocide, there is little doubt that there is political recognition for it. Indeed, the United Nations, as you know, the Human Rights Council adopted a resolution urging the Security Council to refer the crimes committed by ISIS to the International Criminal Court. So I think the problem here is not that much of a political recognition of the fact of genocide. The problem is to try to put it in such a format that it can be tried in courts of justice. And that is, of course, a different matter. I think the ICC could play a role there, but also European jurisdictions could play a role. We have a particular responsibility. Thousands of European citizens, traveled to this area to destroy it, to commit genocide against the Yazidi people and others. And so the European countries who allowed that have a particular responsibility. They should set up investigations and trials for genocide in European courts, which is perfectly possible. And then I think also the local courts have to play a role. That's an obvious matter.
دکتۆر جەنابەت لێکۆڵینەوە نووسیوە لە بارەی ئەو تاوانانەی داعش کە لە دژی کوردانی ئێزدی و کریستیان و شەبەک و ئەوانەی کە ناوتێنان لە دەشتی نینەوە ڕوویانداوە نووسیوە دەتوانی پێمان بڵێ ینی بابەتەکان زیاتر لەسەر چین چۆن زانیاری دەستکەوتووە لەو بارەیەوە.
Well, the information, of course, came from people on the ground. Witnesses, people I met in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, people I've met here during previous visits. I went actually I visited areas where the crimes have been committed in 2017. So,
هەموو کوردانی ئێزدی بوون یان ئەوانەی شەبەک و کریستیانیشت بینیوە؟
Yes. I visited particularly this area in 2017. But the next point now is, I think, is to set up a task force that can collect all these materials, that can put them in a format where they can be submitted to courts of law here in Europe on an international level. And I think it needs all to be combined. The evidence, the materials that are available on the ground, which I know are available because I met the organizations, I met the victims, and so the information, the evidence is available. It now has to be processed in such a way that it can be the basis of trials in courts of law on an international level, on a European level, on a local level. And I think that is the task that is ahead now.
دکتۆر جەنابەت پارێزەرێکی کۆمەڵی دیموکراتانی و هەروە سەرۆکی ئەم کۆمەڵەی تۆ ئاگاداری بە بەرپرسانی نێودەوڵەتی کۆمەلگای نێودەوڵەتیت ڕاگەیاندووە کە ئەم کچ و ژنانەی کە ڕفێنراون لەلایەن داعشەوە کراون بە سەبیە ڕزگار کراون بە پارە ئێستا دووبارە لە کەمپەکاندا لەژێر چادردا لە حاڵێکی پەریشاندا دەژین و ڕێکخراوە نێودەوڵەتیەکان بێ ئاگان لێیە؟
Yes, of course. Conferences have been organized in the Human Rights Council, and I think the question of enslavement of Yazidi women and Yazidi children, the abduction of Yazidi women and Yazidi children, will be an absolutely essential part in the discussion of in judicial discussions on the question whether genocide has been committed. So I think it's a very important part, because there is the physical elimination of the men, and of course there is the enslavement, acts of enslavement against women and children. Well, I think the international community has done very little, not enough, that's clear. But part of the question now, I think, is to organize things in such a way, in cooperation between international organizations and the local organizations, to organize it in such a way that a plan, a concrete, practical plan for an accountability process can be developed, that the available evidence can be processed in such a way that trials can be organized on the different possible levels, that the evidence can be organized in such a way that investigative teams, international and national, can start cooperating to prepare the trials. And then I think rather quickly we can get to a result. I think, to be frankly speaking, I think first of all, the authorities and the organizations in this part of the world should work together, because it is important that such a plan is not imposed from outside, but that it is a plan that is based on the realities on the ground. So I think that is one. But two, of course, international advisors, international experts, international organizations should be involved to share the experience from other situations like Rwanda or previously like South Africa. That experience should be brought in to benefit to the local people in order to be able to organize an accountability process. But I think it is essential that the process is really, that I would say the local people and the victims stay on top of the process and keep the control over the process. It's not something that should be imposed from outside.
دکتۆر هەر لەسەر ئەو لێکۆڵینەوەی کە جەنابتان نووسیوتانە هیچ کۆنتاکتێکتان لەگەڵ ئەو نووسینگە کردووە کە سەرۆکی حکوومەتی کوردستانی چیروان بارزانی کردووەتەوە بۆ ڕزگارکردنی کچ و ژنانی کوردی یزدی لە دەستی داعش بە چەندین ملیۆن دۆلاری سەرف کردووە بۆ کڕینەوەیان و ڕزگارکردنیان هیچ کۆنتاکتێکت لەگەڵ ئەو نووسینگەیە کردووە لەسەر چۆنیەتی ڕزگارکردنیان؟
Well, actually, I have had contacts with people on the floor working with this office and with the other organizations that are working on this matter. And I know the very important effort that has been made by the local authorities and by many also community-based organizations. And I think that effort precisely is the only possible starting point and basis for an accountability process. It should be, of course, supported by the international community. International experience and experts should be helping that local process. But I think the office set up by the Prime Minister and also the community organizations, because I think they play an important role, the community-based organizations should be the basis, the starting point of such an accountability process.
دکتۆر حکوومەتی هەرێمی کوردستان هەروە حکوومەتی عێراق دەبێت چی بکەن؟ چی هەنگاوێک بنێن بۆ ناساندنی ئەو تاوانانەی کە دژ بە کوردی ئێزدی کراون بە جینۆساید بناسرێت لەسەر ئاستی نێودەوڵەتی؟ ئەبێت چی بکەن؟ چی هەنگاوێک بنێن؟
Well, all governments and all official bodies have the responsibility to bring perpetrators of genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes to court, to try them and to organize an accountability process. So it's obvious that the Iraqi government, like all other governments in the world, has the responsibility to facilitate this process, to organize it, and to protect in this way the future generations, because as I said previously, there can be no reconciliation and no stability in society, I think, without the truth, without a process of truth, recognition and also accountability. So it's obvious that all governments and official bodies have full responsibility to cooperate in this and to mobilize and to organize the resources necessary to bring it to a good end. But the task is important. I think previous examples show that it's a difficult matter, that it needs very carefully very careful process tailored to the concrete situation. And it shows also that the local authorities in general, after such events which completely disturb society and disturb the normal functioning of society, also need the assistance of the international community to be able to bring it to a good end. So I think the responsibility is to work together, to set up the process and to seek assistance from the international community to bring it to a good end.
Well, Dr. پرۆسەی کۆکردنەوەی بەڵگەکان دەبێت چۆن بێ لە کاتێکدا کە زۆربەی چەکدارانی داعش کوژراون سوتاون بەڵگەکانیان بە پێبوردمانەکان سوتێونراون و میلیشیای مەسەلەن تایفی هاتوونەتە ئەو ناوچانە دوای نەمانی داعش لە مووسڵ ئەم ناوچانە چۆن دەتوانن ئەو بەڵگانە کۆبکەنەوە دەبێت بە شێوەیەک ئەم بەڵگانە بەدەست بخێنرێن.
Well, I think that's going to be one of the main points in setting up an accountability process. I've seen on the ground that many different forces, many different kinds of organizations, officials, military organizations, but also civil society organizations have been collecting evidence. And of course, especially for the community organizations, with very little means and very, I would say, with a methodology which is not a professional methodology. So I think if you look at the situation in Rwanda, where the authorities were absent during a large period of the genocide because the old authorities collapsed, and anyhow organized the genocide, and the new authorities were not yet fully established. Community organizations played also an essential role there in gathering evidence. The point now is to collect all these pieces of evidence which are scattered over a whole series of organizations, official organizations, military organizations, international organizations, community organizations. I think the challenge now is to see how that can be gathered and processed with one single professional methodology. And that is going to be the challenge, I think, for the next year or two. Because it's only on that basis that then after, in a second stage, you can bring it to a court of law.
Dr. Ewa کارتان لەسەر ئەوەش کردووە زانیاریەوەشتان کۆ کردووتەوە کە ژمارەیەک لەو کچ و ژنانەی ڕفێنراون بە سەبیە لە لای خوانشبوونە داعش مناڵیان بووە ئێستا کە ڕزگار کراون ئەو مناڵانشیان لەگەڵا هیچ کارتان کردووە کە چارەنووسی ئەم مناڵانە چی ئەبێ کە لەگەڵ ئەم ژنانان و باوکیان چەکدارێکی داعش بووە کوژراوە خۆتەزانی کۆمەڵگای ئێرە بە هینە حەزەرەوە نزیکی ئەم بابەتانە ئەبێتن ئێوە وەکو کۆمەڵگای ڕۆژئاوایی یاخود بڵێن پارێزەرێکی نێودەوڵەتی دیموکرات هیچ زانیاری لەو بارەوە کۆ کردووتەوە؟
First of all, this is not only a matter of law, of course. The question of children that were born out of a rape of an enslaved woman is a matter that goes far beyond law. I think the guideline should be nevertheless the International Convention on the Rights of Children. These children should benefit from the same rights and the same possibilities as any other child, because of course neither their mothers bear any responsibility in what happens. So the child and the mother should not be punished even on a social level for what they were subjected to. Essential there is that the communities, but also the official bodies and the international community clearly lay the responsibilities. The responsibilities are not with these mothers and these children. The responsibilities are with those who organize the enslavement. That is the starting point. But secondly, very often this kind of situation needs also a very important work of reconciliation between the communities and within the communities, because this kind of situation or this kind of crimes also provoke deep wounds within the communities. And so the communities will have to overcome this. I would say my recommendation would be just accept these children as if they were children from your community, because that's the only way to get over this.
دکتۆر بە کورتی لەبەرەوەی کاتم کەمماوە دەمەوێت لەبارەی ئێمەسان هێزی پێشمەرگە ئەم ناوچانەی لە دەستی داعش ڕزگار کرد لە شنگال و دەوروبەری. بەڵام دواتر بەهۆی چەند کێشەیەکی دوای ڕیفراندۆمەوە لە باشووری کوردستان لە 16 ئۆکتۆبەری ساڵی 2017 خۆتەزانی هێرشی سوپای عێراق لەگەڵ چەکداران حەج شعبی هاتوونەتە و ناوچانەیان دووبارە گرتووە کە بەدەیان گۆڕی بە کۆمەڵی تێدا قوربانیان. بەڵام ئەوان هاتوونەتە و شوێنە مەترسی هە لەسەر ناوچوونە لەبەرەوانە میلیشان وەکو خەڵکی ناوچەکە بە ناویان دەکاتن. مەترسی لە ناوچوونی ئەم گۆڕانە هەیە. دەبێت چی بکرێت بۆ پاراستنی ئەم شوێنەوارانە ئەم پاشماوانە؟
First of all, it is the responsibility of anybody in the area, whether it's the Iraqi forces, the Peshmergas, or anybody else, to secure the evidence. And so it's clear that the political situation is extremely complex, that there is a lot of division and a lot of, sometimes even unfortunately, fighting. I think the most important point is that all these forces should be united in one single process of recognition of the fact of genocide and recognition of the necessity of accountability for that genocide. Now, I would say I'm worried, for example, by the fact that up until now, and that's both the case in Iraq but also in Europe, that prosecutions are almost exclusively based on membership of terrorist organization. If you do that, it means that people will never have answers to the question, what happened to my kin, what happened to my community, because prosecuting on the basis of membership of a terrorist organization, you just have to show that the person was a member of the organization. And so I think setting up a process that takes fully into account the scope of the crimes, the nature of the crimes that were committed, and working with all these different forces in order to convince them of the necessity of an accountability process where the full scope of the genocide crimes and crimes against humanity is debated is a precondition to convince them to protect the communities and to protect the evidence.